Okay, guys, welcome back. We're doing our coaches spotlight. You saw our previous episode with Coach Chuck, but now we're going to decide to make the interviewer the interviewee with Coach Andrew, and going to ask him some of the questions that you guys all sent in that you guys are really wanting to know, and just get to learn more about our coach. So, first one, going to start in. Andrew, where'd you grow up and where are you from?
So I actually grew up in Mountain, Wisconsin. For those that don't know where that is, it's a pretty small hole in the wall in Wisconsin, probably like an hour and 15 minutes north of Appleton. I cannot describe what highways you take to get there, but I could drive it, almost with my eyes closed. Yeah, so I grew up in Mountain, Wisconsin. The population is probably, well, it's unincorporated, so I think in the summertime people go up there to use their cabins and things like that. I think in the summer you maybe see a population of 800 people, so yeah, really small town. Yeah.
Second question we got was, what was your first exposure to MMA?
That's a good one. I think about this often, and the earliest thing I can come back to would be my brother David. You guys know Coach David. So he's 7.5 years older than me, so he was into a lot of stuff, obviously, that, at that whatever age I was when I first watched this. He was more into it than I was, like a little kid, so I'm like, oh, this is so cool. But he was actually watching The Ultimate Fighter Season 1 on DVD, and I think he had to like buy it or get it, without my dad's permission. It's too violent. So I remember I literally can think about it back to this day like like it was yesterday. I just remember walking down the hallway to my room, and I hear like guys punching, kicking, or whatever. You can hear that like smack, that thud, and I'm like, I peek in his room, like, David, what are you watching? He's like, it's Ultimate Fighter. I'm like, what is that? So yeah, that's my first exposure really to it. I was super young. I was enthralled in it right away. I loved Diego Sanchez because he was a submission guy. He was rear naked choking everybody on that season. I love Forrest Griffin, Stephan Bonner, guys that fought for the finale. A bunch of other guys on there I love too, but those really stick out in my head. So yeah, my first introduction to MMA at all, like fighting, any combat sport, literally was The Ultimate Fighter Season 1 on DVD. So
That's pretty cool. And that also kind of like gave a lot of momentum to like MMA. I feel like a lot of people saw Season 1.
oh
And
yeah.
they're like, whoa, like what is this?
Oh yeah, I think I've probably rewatched that season a couple times, whereas there's other seasons I probably honestly haven't seen.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely the most notable one I think out of the whole series in my mind.
Any like specific moments that like stand out to you the most from Season 1? Like like favorite moments?
I think probably just kind of what I touched on before was, well, for sure the finale fight. I don't know that I watched that at that age until I got later into the sport, just because that ended up being I think on some sort of pay-per-view or whatever. So like I only saw basically the finale fight of the season. I don't even remember if that fight was on like the DVD set. But I would say the most memorable part, yeah, was probably just the finale fight with Forrest Griffin, Stephan Bonner. That's like a household. If you haven't seen that fight, go back and watch that. That's essentially what propelled the sport of the UFC, or I'm sorry, the organization UFC, into mainstream media. But I think on the actual season was probably like Diego Sanchez just rear naked choking everybody.
Yeah.
I just loved it because he was a smaller guy. He competed at middleweight because there wasn't like weight classes for smaller guys back then. And yeah, just him being a submission specialist is essentially like what got me into wanting to learn jiu-jitsu one day. So.
Well, nice. So you mentioned that you started getting enthralled in it, but what made you start training in MMA? Like you became a fan of the Ultimate Fighter, but what made you actually like go into a gym?
Yeah. That's a good question. But yeah, I think just being exposed to it at that young age, wanting to learn mostly jiu-jitsu. I didn't really have like a urge to learn like striking necessarily. So yeah, I just wanted to learn jiu-jitsu. I knew that it was such a good like art for self-defense, grappling. I thought that just the submission skills of it were so cool and interesting. So yeah, I wanted to start it, really at a young age, but growing up in Mountain, there was no other options to do that. So at my earliest age, I started training at like 15. I tried out a couple of jiu-jitsu classes at what was the premier gym in Appleton at the time. Did like a couple classes, free classes, and just loved it. And then I ended up, doing it a few years later, full time. So yeah. yeah, just general interest in the sport and wanting to learn jiu-jitsu essentially is what maybe got into training. Yeah.
Nice. So then, with that, like the first couple like 3 days of training, like getting into it more, like what was the moment like where like the switch flipped, where it was like now you're gonna like transition your lifestyle to like becoming a martial artist?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I was about 17, and I had started training at a gym here in the valley. Um, good gym, more of a jiu-jitsu base. So it was essentially what I wanted was a jiu-jitsu base, and yeah, I'm trying to think like when the flip switch. At the time, I was coaching CrossFit. For those that don't know, I used to do that a lot. That's essentially what MMA is for me now. It was CrossFit, just fitness. I'm still big into fitness, right? Like Olympic weightlifting, I was really big into as well, powerlifting, that kind of stuff. So I was doing CrossFit, 6 days a week, coaching 3 or 4 or 5 days a week. Um, but then once there was like a gym to go to. That again, David was the main catalyst in me going there. Um, yeah, that's essentially when the flip switched was, I mean, quite literally like the first class, because it was like a couple years after I first tried jiu-jitsu, and I just remember loving it when I did it. I should say probably 4 or 5 years later maybe, but yeah, as soon as the first class, I just was like, this is it. Like, this is exactly what I was like looking for when it came to like passion for like fitness, right? Like that was like the number one way that I wanted to like work out. It was the best stress reliever I've ever felt, still to this day. So yeah, essentially just my first class to that gym, I just was like head in. I'm like, this is what I want to do. I want to do this, and I had no aspirations to fight right away, but I just wanted to train. I just wanted to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know this isn't like one of the questions anyone sent in. This is just me personally want to know. Does David ever like give you a hard time, like taking credit for like getting you started?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think if anybody at the gym sees the back and forth with me and David, you've heard him say that before. His favorite thing, and it just kills me every time. I just die laughing. Is anything good in your life is because of me. So we just always go back and forth, and I say the same thing to him. But I mean, honestly though, David really is, being my bigger brother, one of my biggest mentors in life. Business, personal wise. Yeah, he really was like the catalyst for like most, like he's the one who got me into CrossFit, and that was the biggest thing in my life when it came to a passion. And then he's the one who got me into MMA, jiu-jitsu. So I mean, I really can't thank him enough for always being the bigger brother, trying to push me into things that he thought were good for me. Because really, and then there's some things I didn't get into, right? Some things he's into, I'm not into, and vice versa. But yeah. Yeah, he definitely ridicules me a lot for that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, if you guys know David, he's definitely holding that over his head.
Yeah.
So starting training at such a young age, what was your favorite part of training? Like, what was the one thing you loved to do the most?
Yeah, it's kind of a broad one, right? But I just everything about training, just the fact that and I think everybody can relate to this if you guys train, or maybe if you just work out a lot. It's the same type of mentality of when I go to training, when I go to the gym, when I'm rolling in jiu-jitsu, when I'm sparring, when I'm hitting pads, I can't think about anything but the task in front of me, right? And therefore, I just don't really, you're able to let go of any like stresses of that day, of that week, of that month, something big going on in your life. It's that moment where you can just let go and you can just focus solely on what's in front of you. You feel so focused and so alive in those moments that it quickly becomes an addiction in a good way, right? Like you are able to escape those feelings, those bad emotions, those stresses, but it also makes you a lot more focused and clear-headed afterwards, because like most common thing I always hear people say is like, oh, you're a fighter, you train MMA, you must be really angry. No, I don't like hurting people. I'm not angry. I was a lot angrier I had anger issues growing up, and this itself has helped that so much, helped me deal with emotions, helped me deal with problems in my life. Nothing is really that stressful or big in your life. Obviously minus, losing a family member or something like that, losing a job, something like this, losing a business, whatever it is, those are catastrophes that are not easy for anybody. But, the more minuscule things, or even, middle of the road stuff is so easy to deal with when I'm used to, like, say, a 250 pound strong purple belt or brown belt, on top of me, smashing me into the mat. If I can survive that 5-minute roll or the sparring round with the guys at HQ, like I can just, not like get dropped or just totally decimated. That's like, what else is really harder than that? So I'd say that's my favorite part about training for sure.
Mm-hmm. And now kind of like the opposite, and if there is any, is there like a least favorite part of training that you have? Or maybe something you just don't enjoy as much?
No. Yeah, no. That's like, I feel bad not having a really answer for it, but like the answer is no. There's not like anything I don't like about training. I just love everything about it. It's why it's my life now, yeah, no, I would say no.
No, yeah, I agree with you. I think a lot of people here probably know too. There's like of course, like sucks being tired, or maybe like if you're sparring, you don't want to get hit in the face, but
Sure.
It's not like you hate it. You do it because you enjoy it.
I'd say if I were to add something to that, but it's more so again my favorite part, but you have to go through the dislike of it to get on the other end of it, which is epitome of life, right? Is just the facing your ego every day and being in your out of your comfort zone. But that's again why I say it's like that's actually probably my favorite part about it, really, and with what I said before. It's that initial discomfort of having to look yourself in the eyes and look yourself in your heart and be like, oh, I'm not as good as I thought. I'm not as tough as I thought. I'm not as skillful as I thought. I could be better, right? Because somebody in here is always pushing me. You go to HQ, everybody's pushing me. You go in a fight and somebody exposes something, right? Like, you don't like that. Like, that's probably the part that people don't like the most, and why a lot of people get burnt out and don't train anymore after a little bit, is just having to confront your ego. But that's on the flip side of it, that's my favorite part, because everybody has an ego. I have a huge ego, right? Like, if you're a fighter, I think you have to. But you learn to channel it in the right ways, right? Like, being egotistical and not being able to realize when your stuff actually stinks, right? I want to say, you know what I mean? But
yeah.
That's like the worst part of it. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I get it.
Yeah,
it makes sense, like, for sure. Like, I know it's tough for a lot of people. Like, no one likes to be exposed or anything, like you said before.
Right.
No one likes having their ego checked or
yeah,
being told, like, or just kind of finding out you're not good at something.
Right.
That in your head, like, you could be the man at.
Right.
Because there's always gonna be like a bigger fish. There's always someone out there that's better.
There's always somebody that's better, and there's usually always somebody better. There's somebody that's better in the gym that you train at, and if there's not, if you're the big fish in the little pond, go somewhere outside of your pond, and you're gonna find a bigger fish.
Yeah.
And they will cut you down to size.
For sure. So now another question that was given to us by one of the members was, what made you want to open the gym, like probably at the original spot, and like what were your true intentions? Like, you discovered MMA kind of around like 15, you said, from Mountain, then you come to Appleton. Now you want to open a gym. Like, what was kind of your like process of doing that?
Yeah. I always wanted to be a business owner. I come from a line of just entrepreneurs in my family. My brother David has several successful businesses, but mostly I learned this from my dad, who my dad Dave Kauzlaric. He owned a successful military retail store, I guess you would classify it as, and it was right on Wisconsin Avenue. It was actually the front of the building. So the first place we had our gym was, I don't remember the building number, but it was on Summit Street in Wisconsin, or in Appleton. And my dad's store was on the front building of where we opened the gym. So the gym was in the same building as where my dad owned a store for most of my entire adolescent life. Ended up closing it down, just business got tough, and ended up starting a different business that he's successful in as well. But yeah, that kind of was the catalyst to why I wanted to open a business someday. I almost opened a CrossFit gym when I was about 16 with the help of David. Ended up not working out. I just wasn't ready to open a business at that age. And then yeah, like the true, like intention of opening this gym, this business, I mean, any business, right, is to try to make a profit, right? Try to make a living. But like that wasn't the goal, because I mean, I still to this day have a successful day job that I do full time as I do this full time. The true intentions and purpose of opening this place, especially the building we started in was so tiny, was legitimately just to create the environment and the atmosphere that I never was able to find at the other gyms and teams that I trained with previously.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we're not going to make this about, backstory into, oh, I don't like this person, that person. It's just, I wasn't able to find what I was looking for. There's a reason why all these other gyms are successful in Appleton and why people train at them. They love it there, just like our members love it here. I just couldn't find what I was looking for, and I wanted to create that home feeling, that home vibe, that home community that I never felt like I found. So that truly was like why I wanted to open the gym, was essentially just to create a place where I could train, I could continue to train, because I stopped training with a different team, and just have a space to train in a good environment to learn in and get better in, really. And then it just took off from there, to what it is now.
Did part of you also feel like if you felt that way about like other places here that you were training at, like maybe there was other people too that were looking for the same thing?
Oh, 100%. I knew it. That's why I had a lot of, former people and students and members at other gyms in the Valley that to this day still, get people that leave other gyms. And just like, I'm sure we've had people that leave here to find what they're looking for elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, there was a big need and there was a big hole in the Valley for a gym like ours. And so 100%, there definitely was other people that feel that way, because it's the majority of all of our members feel that way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, awesome. On behalf of everybody, we can all just say thank you, because this is quite the culture that you've created here.
Yeah, well, no, it wouldn't be possible though without all of the members here. All the other members at the gym. So I can't thank you guys enough. Really, it's really my gratitude to you. So,
next question we got here is, we have of course being a fight gym, there's probably aspiring fighters, but maybe some entrepreneurs too. So what is your mentality of being a business owner?
Yeah, that's a good question. My mentality, I have to separate, if I'm thinking the straight mentality of being a business owner, I have to separate it from the mentality of being a coach,
mm-hmm.
being a teacher, being a fighter, whatever, a martial artist, because it's totally separate. You can intertwine them, of course, but strictly as a business owner, my mentality is, this is essentially it. I'll try to make this as short as possible, because I like to ramble and rant, as most people know at the gym. I could go on for days, I soar. The biggest, I'd say the as short as sweet possible, my mentality as a business owner is to just create value that people, can relate to and are in need of. Just essentially create an environment, like I kind of touched on before, that people feel welcomed in, and it's a family. A lot of family businesses, that's essentially why they're successful, is that family atmosphere. So me as a business owner, I try to do the same, because this is a small business. We're not in a huge city like Milwaukee or Chicago or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a good size, area. But yeah, my mentality as a business owner is just to create value, and to do right by everybody that I, do business with, essentially. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's a tough question, to be honest. Actually, now I'm thinking about it, but.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably hard for any business owner.
Yeah.
That's because, of course, like you said, it's easy to intertwine, probably the same way you think about training, you can use, for your business,
Right, exactly, because my mentality as a coach or a teacher or, a fighter is completely different from a business owner. You have to think about it very analytically,
mm-hmm.
Very black and white, with business, most of the time, yeah.
So, yeah, nice. Now we got, what is your favorite part about being a coach? I know you said sometimes you have to separate your mentality of being a business owner and a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Now kind of going more on the coach part. What's your favorite part about being a coach?
Yeah, that one's, I think, easier to answer. I love being a coach. It's what I think everybody in life struggles to figure out what they're passionate about and what they put on this earth to do, right? I think at the end of the day, that's everybody's true calling, is to figure out what your purpose is, I think my purpose was to be a coach. My mentality as a coach, is the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm getting long-winded now.
It's okay.
My mentality as a coach is strictly just to support, encourage, and drive every person that I coach towards their individual goals. So whether their goal is to lose weight, put on muscle, just be healthier, get better at kickboxing, get better at jiu-jitsu, compete in a jiu-jitsu tournament, win a jiu-jitsu tournament, become a fighter, win a fight, become a pro, get into LFA, get into Bellator, get in the UFC, right? Like whatever their goals are, that is my only purpose as as a coach, is to encourage, support, and drive / push you forward towards whatever desired goal is.
Yeah. So now, as like you're encouraging and like driving people to their goal, like how does it feel like as a coach to like be watching someone you help like making those strides? Like someone who's like never even thrown a punch before, and like then you like coach them up to like their first amateur fight.
Oh man, it's the best. I mean, not to, obviously you're a fighter, and all of our fight team. I don't want to put them down in this way, but like I think what's even better than seeing somebody succeed in a sport like MMA, and I'm not saying this because it's cliche, but just legitimately seeing the look on people's faces when they come into the gym with no knowledge. They come right off essentially coming out of the street with no knowledge of striking, no knowledge of jiu-jitsu, and being able to see them within a month, 30 days, quickly blossom into somebody that's performing these moves on other members, or like, oh coach, I got my first submission on somebody in the gym, and it's not an ego thing. Like they're just like, I got a submission, because I know how it was as a white belt in jiu-jitsu, to finally get that first submission. I'm like, I'm actually like good at jiu-jitsu, right? That's like what you feel, So yeah, I think it's just the most rewarding part about being a coach, if that's essentially how I'd answer it, would be seeing the look on people's faces when they blossom into something that they've always wanted to be, or achieve, like learning a skill that they always wanted to learn. Because this essentially just gives them so much confidence in life, and you see it pour into all of their other, facets of their life. Yeah, that's probably the most rewarding thing, definitely, is just seeing somebody being able to see themselves butterfly into something that they always wanted to do or be,
Yeah, that's awesome. So now I just want to be sure that like I have this correct, and anyone might be wondering too. So you opened the gym. Did you have intentions of fighting before, like as you're opening up the gym?
Yeah, I wanted to actually make my amateur MMA debut like years before I did, but I had suffered a bad knee injury, partially tore my LCL. I was out for 9 months, so that put a big damper on that, and then like the road to recovery from there, put a big hold on that. But yeah, no, I wanted to fight way before I opened the gym, and then when we opened the gym, I didn't fight for a year and a half till we opened. Just took a lot of time to get the gym to a point where we had enough training partners for me, and just kind of getting the business to a point where I could start to focus a little bit on fighting. Yeah.
So I know like you kind of touched on it, but like at what point did you want to like try like have your first fight?
I'd say probably like 6 or so months into training. I think I didn't really have it as a goal. I didn't have it as like, when I was a young kid, I always thought like, oh, it'd be cool to be a professional athlete. So that became like a semi-goal, right? But like I just never knew like how I would do it. It was never like this tangible thing like, I'm going to be a CrossFitter and I'm going to get into the CrossFit games and be a professional athlete, or I'm going to become an MMA fighter and become a pro and be a professional athlete, or baseball or basketball, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was just the coaches I had at the time. Like Coach Chuck was my first MMA coach, and essentially, yeah, he just kind of pushed me into it, really. Just was like, hey, I think you should maybe try this. Just was a dedicated student and was learning a lot, so that's essentially why, yeah, just wanted to try it, really. Yeah, thought I could potentially be good at it.
Yeah. And then I know Coach Chuck definitely thinks a lot highly of you, even though he's kind of quiet.
Yeah.
You can tell. And it probably feels good too that like he's still kind of like bringing you up too.
Oh man, it's so cool. We just did an interview with him yesterday to kind of highlight and spotlight him as a coach and an integral part of our team. But what's funny is I didn't even know this until maybe until I was getting ready for my pro debut. Chuck had actually told me that he never actually thought I would be able to like be a fighter.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So yeah, I thought it was super interesting. He just flat out was like, yeah, when you first joined, he's like, I thought you were a great guy and good kid and all stuff. So I was like 17 at the time, and he's like, I just didn't think you had it in you. And I was like, well, it's cool to kind of come on the other end of that, But I love it though because I've had the same thought about certain people we've had fight at the gym. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just truthfully, like, I'm not gonna name names. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head, but just I'm like, yeah, I just don't know if they have what it takes. And that's not a knock on them, right? Like, it takes a very specific person and mindset and mentality to fight. But yeah,
That's cool. I didn't really know that.
yeah. We still laugh about it to this day. So.
So then, moving on to that, can you describe what it felt like, just like before and like during like your first fight?
Yeah, probably the most memorable fight I've ever had, and I don't know why. I always think about this, like, why is that my favorite one? Probably just because it was the first one.
Mm-hmm.
It took me about 3 years from like starting training to actually have my first MMA fight, just injuries and starting up the gym and all these things. That was truly a day I'll never forget. I mean, all my fights I'll never forget, but that one sticks out to my mind the most because of just the build up, what it took me to what I had to go through to get there. All of the doubts from everybody that when I opened the gym, I was a blue belt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was a no stripe blue belt. I don't know. I do know some gym owners that started as a blue belt teaching martial arts, but it's not very common, and most of those gyms, unfortunately, typically don't, end up being very successful or make it, which is sad, because people have this notion you need to be a black belt to be able to teach people things. So that's like one of the dumbest things I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
Not that, and the thing is, like, not every black belt is a good teacher. Just like obviously not every purple or brown or blue belt is going to be a good teacher, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so just all of the trials and tribulations I had to go through, all the people doubting me, really led up to that moment, and then making my amateur debut against a tough kid, John Mulhern, friends with the guy to this day, great guy, but I actually watched him compete in jiu-jitsu tournaments leading up to our fight. I think the guy takes double gold almost every time he competes. He was a really good blue belt when we fought. I believe he's a purple now. Real good on the ground, decent wrestler, but just really good jiu-jitsu. And like, he went on to do pro grappling, submitted brown belts in tournaments. I think at the time he was still a blue belt, maybe purple, I don't remember. But there was a lot of buildup. It was like 12 weeks before the fight. We had the opponent locked in. And then what was really cool was we were fighting at the Milwaukee Theater, which is the Miller High Life Theater, I believe is the technical term for it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really cool. I'd never been there before. I never really, been in Milwaukee that much in general. So making my debut on a big card, it was a pretty stacked card. There was like 20 something fights on there. It was on the platform of the stage of the theater.
Mm-hmm.
The whole venue was just cool because I'm like, man, like it started to like sink in, like all these like well-known artists and bands and like just performing artists like perform there and do shows there and things like that. So I was like, it's pretty like surreal being a kid coming from Mountain, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
To be able to like fight in the Milwaukee Theater.
Yeah, now like
cool.
sharing a big stage with like big names have been there before.
Yeah, and it's like, this might sound stupid to some of my other friends that are, people that are in the UFC and stuff, but it's like, to me as a kid at that time, that was like my UFC debut, was my amateur debut. You don't know what you don't know, right? So yeah, just I felt extremely calm. That was probably the most calm I ever felt for any of my fights, to be honest. And I always like think, I'm like, man, I just want to go back to those feelings I had, because I just was so ready mentally. I was so ready to just leave it all in there, because it just took me so long to get there. I was like, this is it. I remember this one always sticks out in my head is the walkout. He walked out first, and I'm sitting there, I'm kind of bouncing up and down, looking straight at the walkout area to the cage, and I'm looking right at the cage. And I remember I was sitting there kind of like serious with the game face on, and then I remember just smiling, and I just thought to myself, there it is, like, this is what you've been waiting for, is to get into that thing right there, that cage. And in that moment, I just was filled with so much focus, just stone cold focus. I didn't care about anything else. I was just ready for that moment. The fight unfolded, obviously well for me, but it was because of a lot of the diligent training that we did, the game plan that my brother David came up with. He's a great mind for MMA. A lot of people don't understand, but man, that guy watches tons of film and truly understands the sport in a way that people would not expect. Just a great strategist, great great at predicting what's going to kind of unfold in the fight. You can never predict everything, but very good at doing that. And so, yeah, we knew he was a wrestler, knew he was going to take me down, and, was able to stuff the takedown. So he actually landed like a head throw, and I got right back up. And then, yeah, just kind of, ground and pound, just Wanderlei Jiu-Jitsu, the Pohada. And then finished him with an armbar with like 6 seconds left in, I think, the second round. So fought like 2 full rounds, won, and yeah, I mean, that was the highlight, man, of my life at that time. That was definitely a day I'll never forget, for sure.
What was the 12 weeks like? Like, cause like as soon as the fight was locked in, what were your thoughts and feelings then?
Oh man, it was stressful. I mean, every night I dreamed about it. I stalked him on social media like crazy. Yeah, every night I'd have dreams about it. I remember at the time, my girlfriend at the time, we're taking a nap during the day or whatever. It's a few weeks before the fight, I think, and I'm laying there, she's laying in front of me, and I remember I was having, every night I would dream about the fight, just on going different ways. And I literally remember jolting in real life, because in the dream I was throwing a punch. So I'm laying on my side, she's like facing me, and I remember my hands like right here, and I remember my body jolted the hand out because it was the same punch I threw in the dream. But the jolt woke me up, and I just remember waking up, my fist was like right in front of her. I was like, and I remember she woke up like 2 seconds later. She's like, what the heck? And I'm like, I'm sorry. I was like, I swear to God, just having a crazy dream about the fight. So that's something we laughed about. She was like, oh my goodness, but yeah, I just was obsessed. I just was obsessed like every other fight. Yeah, the training was hard, but it very fulfilling and rewarding, at the end of that.
Well, nice. How many amateur fights did you have? Just for anyone that doesn't know.
Yeah, I had 5. So I went 4-1 as an amateur. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I won my first 4 fights, all finishes, and then I lost my last amateur fight to split decision. Mm-hmm. So fought a really tough kid and just didn't perform as well as I could have. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also too, you can actually check out Andrew's debut fight on YouTube against Johnny Mulhern.
Oh,
kind of see a little young Andrew, also smaller too, because he was fighting at 155.
Skinny, yeah, super skinny. I probably walked into the cage at like 162. I mean, I was literally tiny.
No, yeah, you guys want to see a little boy? Check that video out. And also a great performance too. It's a great fight. So now you win your first fight, then you go on and you win 3 more fights in a row, right? Yeah. So just before actually the 4th fight, like leading up to the amateur title, what was it like kind of going on like this winning streak and like getting the title?
Yeah, it was super rewarding, I know big names in the sport, Duke Roufus, Daniel Wanderlei, all these UFC guys at Roufusport. When you're at their level, you look at an amateur title, you're like, dude, that doesn't mean diddly squat. And and like, I'm gonna be honest, like it is not an accolade that brings you to some like crazy level of success in the sport, unless you win like an amateur world title, like Laura Sanchez at Roufusport HQ, like a Gamma, I believe it's Gamma, world champion as an amateur. Like, that's freaking huge, Brennan Allen was a IAMF, I don't know, I'm gonna mess up the abbreviations, but he was a world amateur champion. Those are big world titles. But again, coming from a kid from Mountain, Wisconsin, being a blue belt, opening up a gym, never thinking I could, a lot of people never thinking I could even win a fight or go on this tear and then like win a title. In this area, those are like big deals. At least I think so. But yeah, winning the title, going on that tear, it's hard to describe, I mean, so much went into it, so much preparation, in my first 2 fights, I fought guys that were debut fighters. So like my first fight was John Mulhern, it was this amateur debut. My second fight was a short notice kid, Dustin Donald. He came in on like 2 weeks notice, because the original guy I was supposed to fight was another 1-0 dude who used to train at Roufusport, and I just kept hearing how good his jiu-jitsu was, how good it was. So I was like, I really wanted to prove myself that I was better than him. He had to pull out, so then we got another guy. It was his debut fight. Still took it to me, but I finished him rear naked choke, I think in a minute something in the first round. And then my 3rd amateur fight, I went from fighting people with, they had no fight experience before our fights together. then I went into fighting Dominik Martin, who's still like a buddy. I would consider him a buddy. We still, talk a little bit on social media here and there. Great kid, tough kid. Was a 2 or 3 time amateur champion before we fought. That was his 17th amateur MMA fight, so that was my 3rd fight. And he took that on short notice. I had a guy, long story, but again, just in the fight game, I had a couple guys back out. He came in on short notice. He was competing like every other weekend, which was crazy. So he had like, God, I don't know, 5 or 6 MMA fights, in like 6-7 weeks before we even fought. So I mean, he was extremely active. Took the fight on short notice for King of the Cage, full pro rules. That was a big step up. I ended up finishing him in the 2nd round. So little things like that like made me kind of prepared for that title fight. Made me have no doubt that I was capable of winning it. And really like the lead up was pretty awesome because like, I think probably like most young guys at that time as an amateur, you're looking at amateur title as like the pinnacle, right? And then once you get that, then you're like going pro is the pinnacle, and now I'm a pro, and now I'm like getting into a good show, just put on a win streak and then get into like a bigger promotion is kind of the pinnacle, and then from there, right, keeps going. But I had the Pure FC title. I had an image of it, nice image that they had as my like screensaver on my phone. I think ever since I won my first fight for Pure, because it was like Pure FC, I think my first 2 fights, and then I won the Pure FC title. But that was essentially what I was working towards this whole time. Making my debut was to win that belt someday, and I knew that I could. So then finally getting the chance to fight for it, and then my 4th fight, you fought a guy with double or triple the amount of fights that I had. Again, it was my 4th fight. I believe it was his like 10 or 12, something like that. I don't know the exact number. Maybe it's double amount of fights I had. Ended up finishing really quickly, 60 seconds with a guillotine at Wanderlei Jiu-Jitsu. That was awesome because essentially that was what all of that hard work was for, like the first fight all the way up to the 4th one. Finally like reached a pinnacle in my mind of that small amateur title goal. So yeah, it was very rewarding, very fulfilling for sure.
Now, because like how you said your first 2 fights were both debut guys also, did anything like change for you, like either like mentally or like even training wise, kind of like jumping in the deep end with like your 3rd and 4th fight where it's kind of guys with way more experience than you?
Oh yeah, I was scared going into the Dominik Martin fight when I first got the name that he was going to step in and fight me, because I had already seen him fight before. I started watching his tapes. I mean, he had a bunch of knockouts, and I'm like, typical young fighter. You go, well, that guy knocked that guy out. He can knock me out, right? And of course, it's possible, but each fight is different. But they definitely just taught me. I mean, it gave me a lot of adversity going into the Dominik Martin fight, or I should say during the fight, because I mean, still to this day, my nose is dented in on one side permanently. Unless somehow whatever, I'm not going to do plastic surgery to fix that. But I for 3 years now since that fight, I mean, I don't breathe the same out of my nostrils, right? And that's just a part of the game. I mean, that's just I don't know any fighter who's got probably like a good looking nose or undamaged nose. But like that adversity, there was a part in the fight where he had me on my back. I made a dumb mistake going for a guillotine. He slammed me down. I lose it. He starts ground and pounding me. My head's against the cage. I'm curled up. He's basically an open guard and just pounding my face in, a couple elbows. I think that's what dented my nose. But in that moment, I literally thought, oh crap, if I don't move right now and try to get up, I'm literally going to get knocked out and I'm going to lose. And my mindset went from just very cerebral, like, all right, you're going to lose if you stay here. You're going to literally get knocked out. This is not good. We need to get up because we want to win.
Yeah.
And I kicked him off, got back up to my feet. He came in, I got him down, all the stuff. But definitely like that adversity of being pushed and tested, being put in a spot where you actually got hurt in a fight was definitely helpful. And then, obviously then my 4th fight was very fast. It definitely prepared me for those types of situations, I think. That 3rd one is probably the most like crucial in it when it came to being like testing me as a fighter, I think, just in the amateur career. So.
Okay. And then now kind of moving on to like your first like title defense.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it's probably not the best, like no one ever wants to lose, but do you feel like that was like a good like lesson for you, like that helped you grow like as an amateur fighter?
Definitely. I think it's cliche to say, but it's true. Like you learn way more from your losses than you do from your wins. I think you should still be able to take a ton away from a win. At least I do. Like every fight I won, I would watch the video and I'd be like, or I'm sorry, after the fight, I'd be like, oh man, I think I looked terrible. Like my striking technique wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, or my jiu-jitsu could have been better. Like I got hit. Like, you know, like you just start beating yourself up. And then I watch the video and I'm like, oh, okay. Like I didn't look literally like horrible. You know, I'm like, I didn't literally look like a trash can. I'm like, okay, like, you know, certain things, you know, maybe, you know, Anthony Pettis could watch the fight and be like, dude, you're bad, right? I don't know. But, you know, in my head at that time, I'm like, okay, it's not as terrible as I thought, but I'm like, I could have done this way better. Why did I let him do this, and this? So yeah, then losing that fight, being able to fight 3 full rounds finally, that was the first time I ever fought 3 full rounds as an amateur. Fought a tough kid, Michael Parker, again had, you know, double the amount of fights that I had. He had fought, he was an XFO lightweight champion, which is a well-known promotion in Illinois. They're on UFC Fight Pass. I just knew it was going to be the toughest fight that I've been in yet, and I knew very durable, good wrestler. His game plan was way different than I thought it was going to be. So just one of those things. You just, you know, again, you can't prepare for everything. You have to prepare for any scenario, but you can't always predict what they're going to do, right? So, yeah, just the fight went differently than I thought it was going to, and just truthfully, I could have fought harder, you know, and I think that's the biggest regret I have with that was fighting in Oshkosh. That was the first time MMA was brought back to like that Fox Valley-ish area, and Oshkosh being relatively close to the Fox Valley. I don't think it's considered the Fox Valley, but I don't know. You know, essentially fighting at home for the first time, and that being the first card in this home area for us, you know, in probably like a decade, I don't know, I want to say probably a decade, was just a huge deal. I had, gosh, I don't know, 100 something, yeah, I sold 100 something tickets, I think, to the fight, which is not a lot to consider, compared to some people I know, but for me it was a lot. And just having that, you know, all my friends, family, gym members there to watch me and support me. You know, and then we had 2 other guys on the card, Nini and Zach Rogard. They all won really good fights. So it's like I was the last fight of our team, and I just wanted to go 3-0 that night. I wanted to carry the torch that they did so well in giving me, and, you know, kind of crap the bed with it. Yeah, just didn't fight as good as I could have. But again, those are the things that I learned from that fight. Was it reinvigorated my passion and my fire for competing, and just that killer mindset. I kind of got a little, I don't know, you know, there's so many things I could try to say. Like, I think I started to just almost not have an answer to some of the things he was doing. Like, I did have an answer, but I wasn't thinking of him. I wasn't pulling him out of the tool belt in those moments. I was too focused on just trying to react. You know, he was just doing a good job of imposing his will. So yeah, I took a ton of things away from that, but it definitely tested me mentally and physically as a fighter. You know, it was a split decision loss. It's one of those things I told myself, like, I'm gonna fight my ass off, you know, and that's all I can promise. You know, I'm just going to put on a good show. I'm gonna try to finish the fight. And I had moments in the fight where I almost finished him with jiu-jitsu. He told me after it was some of the tightest guillotines he's ever been put in. And you know, in the first round, I remember him saying that afterwards, that he's like, I was literally he's like, you know, this close to tapping. But then I heard the clacker, you know, and I was like, okay, I can get out of this. Like, you know, just certain things like that. So yeah, I mean, definitely learned a lot for sure.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up is because then it was actually after that fight, you actually were preparing for your pro debut in LFA. So just tell us what it was like making your pro debut and like kind of like the preparation for LFA.
Yeah, it was super exciting. We knew after that last amateur fight that I wanted to go pro. And yeah, it wasn't about winning or losing the last one. It was just about getting a good experience, you know, and being tested in a certain way. So we decided to go pro, and we got a huge opportunity. So actually, before the LFA fight, I had actually gotten an offer to make my pro debut on Bellator in Chicago. That was in May, and I think it was May 11th or something. I don't remember, but it was about 5 weeks before the LFA fight. Essentially, so Duke called me and gave me the offer. It was against a super tough guy, Chris Gonzalez, who trains at a Team Alpha Male. He's at 10-time Greco-Roman All-American, Greco All-American. It was just a little bit, you know, not necessarily short notice. I mean, it was short notice, But I had not anticipated fighting till like August,
Mm-hmm.
and just being lazy, I just let myself get too heavy in weight, and I couldn't take the opportunity, to be honest. So then we got another opportunity to fight on LFA in Madison. Gave us more time to prepare, and yeah, the preparation was grueling. I was so motivated and so ready for that fight. I thought I did very well in the fight, except for a few things. I mean, I think anybody that knows of the fight. I mean, I get people. I'll go to. I mean, it's been, gosh, it's almost a year now since that pro debut, and I get people to this day that I'll go to a fight or a tournament and somebody comes up that not even a teammate. I hardly know them. They just know of me. I know of them. They come up like, man, that's such BS about what happened with your fight. And I'm not gonna dwell on it. But people that know and saw the video obviously didn't go my way. I got elbowed like 6, 7, 8 times in the back of the head. So the ref declared it a TKO loss for myself, even though I've had the state commissioner herself and the right-hand man to her flat out tell me that they're 4 or 5 that they for sure were like, these are illegal blows, that it should have been a disqualification or at least overturned. But because we have such an awesome state athletic commission in Wisconsin, you can't overturn any decisions, so it makes a lot of sense. But you can appeal, but you can't overturn it. So makes a ton of sense. But anyway, so the fight was it was huge. Like being for one, making my pro debut, becoming a professional was such a lifelong goal as a kid. Like just be a professional athlete of something was huge. I had been watching LFA for years, all my Roufusport teammates and just other big name people that have gone from LFA to the UFC. For those that don't know, LFA, Legacy Fighting Alliance, is considered the #1 feeder to the UFC, meaning they send the most people outside of the UFC to that promotion, and other promotions as well. But great promotion. I'm wearing the hat here. It's one of my favorite hats. Yeah, it was such a big deal, having Pat Miletich, a UFC Hall of Famer, literally sitting there, calling my fight, cage side, fighting on a card with other great fighters. Fighting in Madison was my first time. Fighting at the Sylvie was really cool. I'd never even heard of it. It was a newer venue that they created there, or built there. Awesome venue. These are things I'll never forget. Of course, I wish that I was able to either lose or win the fight fairly, but again, it's the fight game, and I've grown a lot from that. Had a lot of great moments in the fight. I fought a tough dude, Austin Lutchen. I've seen him many times after that, and he's nothing but respectful and nice to me when I see him in kind, and I do the same back. Of course, like I said, right, a lot of controversy with that, but aside from that, was still an awesome experience, a great learning experience. And yeah, I think for me, being such a MMA nerd, and I just, in general, I'd say I'm an emotional guy, so I care a lot about things, and sometimes too much, sometimes it can be bad, sometimes it can be good, but to me that was everything. Again, coming from Mountain, Wisconsin, where I could probably say with almost 100% certainty there are no professional athletes that have ever come out of that town. I think there's only 2 people from that area, Soaring and Mountain, Wisconsin, that have ever competed in MMA, and I'm the first one to my knowledge. The other one trains at my gym now, which is a cool story, but a childhood friend. So yeah, it was just a huge deal, man. Fighting on LFA, wasn't on the televised part, almost got on there, and I look forward to hopefully competing for them again. So yeah, that's a long-winded answer.
Oh, yeah, just kind of to bring it back a little bit, because I remember you said for your amateur debut, that was kind of in your head, oh, it was a UFC debut, kind of big. So what was it like fighting for an actual big stage like LFA that's a feeder to the UFC?
Man, it was awesome, dude. I'm sitting in the back getting ready, and for one, like I said, the Sylvie was just such a sick venue. It reminded me a lot of the Milwaukee Theater. But Wyatt Barber, who's Macy Barber's little brother.
Oh yeah.
Super good and nice kid. He made his amateur MMA debut. So Macy Barber's, obviously Roufusport teammate. We know her real well. She's awesome. Her and her family are back there. Gerald Mearshardt's back there, UFC fighter. I love that guy. Joe Nichols, coach at Roufusport. So it was cool. Like Armando Cameroon was fighting on there. So I had all these like teammates from Roufusport, which is cool. You got Macy Barber in the back. She came up through LFA, now a star in the UFC, rising star. Gerald Mearshart, who again came up through RFA, was an RFA champion. Just cool, like all these little things add up. And yeah, I mean, it was surreal because, like I said, I've been watching LFA as a huge fan for, gosh, years. It was on Access TV. It's now on UFC Fight Pass. I watch it on like my actual TV, right? To me, it was like, dude, I'm fighting on this TV channel. I wasn't on the televised part, right? But I'm fighting on the promotion that like, dude, I watch these guys fight on this thing, on TV for years. Yeah,
No, yeah.
It's those little things, that like you really take it to heart, and you're like, this is special, So yeah, all I can say, it was just special. I know I'll look back years from now and be like, it was still awesomely special, but I'm gonna create many more memories that are gonna be just as special, if not more.
Now, also too, like with your fight career, like of course, like on paper it might seem like small, like you only had 1 fight as a pro and 5 fights as an amateur, like just something that might like be small, but of course there's like a lot of miles with that too. Like what are like some big either life lessons or like just like personal lessons that like you've gained, or like now like more knowledge you have because of like your fight career so far?
Yeah, that's a good question. What lessons have I learned, essentially, right?
Yep.
Gosh, I would word it as this: like, what is like the sport of MMA kind of taught me so far in my fight career? I would say, never underestimate anybody, never underestimate a fighter, and then that goes into real life. Like, never underestimate somebody. Like, if you get into an altercation in the street where you got to defend yourself, just because you're a pro fighter or an amateur fighter or a purple belt in jiu-jitsu or a brown belt or black belt, right? The dumbest thing you could do is underestimate somebody. So, you never know what people are capable of, and you never know what somebody, like, what kind of training they have. So I've been in that situation in a fight where I've underestimated somebody, and they definitely showed me like, hey dude, like I came to fight. So yeah, I think just never underestimating somebody, and just definitely taught me the humbleness of like, look, like you can fight, but kind of like we touched on earlier, there's always somebody that's better than you that could smash you.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I feel a lot of those people are my teammates, at Roufusport and at our gym. So luckily those people are on my side, but I get to learn from them and get better from them. So I'd say that's probably what biggest lesson I've learned from my fight career so far. Yeah.
That's awesome. Now kind of going back like into like the actual like individual fights, like what's your mentality like, as a fighter, like during training and during like the actual fight?
I think it's different. I think it is so different for every single person. I know a lot of people that look at it as just like a sport, just like, hey man, I competed all my life. It's just another thing I'm competing at. I'm like, oh, that's cool. For me, it's way different. I never competed in sports growing up. So like the only thing that I've really ever competed in was like jiu-jitsu tournaments or MMA. So again, for me too, I just have a different mentality about stuff, right? And I don't know if it's right or wrong. It's just what I do. It's just how I am. But my mentality getting ready for a fight and then actually get like into that cage and like the bell ringing, right, is like, it's this mentality of just like kill or be killed. Of course I'm not going out there with reckless abandon. Like, I think I'm a pretty cerebral fighter, thinking a lot while I'm in there and before and after and all that stuff. But quite literally, I feel, this is my opinion, right? This is kind of my, mantra when it comes to being a fighter, is that if you're not, and I'll go even a step further, but I'll bring it back a little bit for most people, is like, if you're not willing to give a piece of yourself in there, then I don't think you should be in there, And what I mean by that is, if you're not willing to, like, my mindset is just, I'm willing to die. I'm willing to go in there and just die for the victory. Okay, so it's like, I'm either gonna go out on my shield, I'm either going out with my shield or on it, essentially. And that's not the same for everybody. And of course I know, right? Like, when you fight, there's a risk that your life could be altered permanently.
Yeah.
My nose is altered, you know what I mean? But like, that's so small compared to some people.
Yeah.
But it is truly that mentality of just, I am willing to give every single piece of my soul, my being, my fighting spirit, my warrior spirit, my heart, my energy, to win, and if I don't, it just means that somebody was either just better than me, or they beat me on points. You know what I mean? Nobody, right, at least is what I tell myself. I haven't, encountered this so far, but my mindset is just nobody can break my will.
Yeah.
The only person that can break my will is myself, because I've had it broken before in the gym and training. And something I heard a good quote from Tim Kennedy is like that mental like strength is breaking your mind down so many times in your soul so that it becomes hardened, so that you cannot let that happen from somebody doing it to yourself, right? So it's I just say my mentality as a fighter is just I am all in. I am obsessed, and I'm not the most talented guy, but I work hard, and I know that I do. And I know I could even work harder. There's days where I'm like, I could do this better, but I'd say the biggest, thing is just I'm just willing to leave it all in there, and that's something that I can honestly say that not everybody is. And that's usually why they don't become successful, or they get burnt out, or they leave the sport. I mean, it's just my mentality about everything. I'm just all in or not at all. So if I'm all in for fighting, like, this is a fight for my life is essentially how I look at it,
No, and just knowing you personally, like, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Like, just knowing you, just like, I know it like hasn't been like too long. It's been like almost 2 years.
Yeah.
But like, just knowing you, like, I don't doubt that at all.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. And like I said, it's just not the same for everybody, but that's how it is for me, for sure. Yeah.
And now kind of like bringing it back, I know we kind of like talked earlier. You said like you wanted to like try to continue fighting for like a big stage like LFA. What do you actually see like coming up for your fight career? Like,
well, unfortunately, I got robbed out of my chance of fighting in 2020. For right now, February, my opponent just didn't show up. Appreciate it, buddy. So that kind of sucks, Then with this coronavirus pandemic, that's putting a big halt on everything. So, I mean, my goal was to have 3 fights this year, go on a big winning streak, decimate everybody in front of me, put on not a winning streak, but a finishing streak. I'm just ready to get back in there. So you can expect to see me fight this year. Obviously, I just don't know when, stuff's going to kind of go back to normal. So hard to say, this year, but I mean, my major goals right now are just to get back in there, put on a finishing winning streak, and align myself to be put in a position to fight on somewhere like Bellator, LFA again. Whatever contenders, hopefully in the next year or 2 or something like that. It just, of course, you got to win the fights, you got to beat the good guys, and then be ready for those opportunities when they come. But win some pro titles maybe anywhere. Maybe I'll make my kickboxing debut at some time in the next couple of years. I don't know. So just stay active, put on a brutal, violent finishing streak, winning streak, and align myself to be ready for a good opportunity, a big opportunity. Yeah,
that's awesome. And now, kind of bringing back to like the gym level, where do you really see like the gym being like kind of in like years to come?
I think, we yesterday just marked 2 years. So we're shooting this video today on May 3rd. Yesterday was 4-year anniversary of our gym, which is just awesome. 4 years strong that we've been going. This is the 2nd location we've moved into. We've expanded in this location 3 times just to try to help match the number of students we've added. And we're just desperately like waiting to get out of the lease here so that we can get a bigger space. So where do I see ourselves in the next few years? In a space 3 times as big. We've got about 2,500 square feet here. Looking for something about 10,000 square feet in our next spot. Yeah, we need it. We're maxed out here. We have a cage we want to put up, and other goodies like that. I have tons of awesome ideas that, once we get into a bigger spot, people are going to go crazy about. But I just think, what I want to say is you got to look at it from my point of view. Is I'm a competitive person. Of course, I want to be the biggest, the best gym out there, and I believe that we are. I believe we are the premier mixed martial arts academy in the Fox Valley. And again, it's not putting down any other gyms. It's exactly what they think about themselves. I think the exact same thing, right?
Yeah.
So, it's yeah, just asserting ourselves as I feel we already do, but just even more so, just kind of putting ourselves leagues above the competition,
Mm-hmm.
always innovating, always pushing boundaries, always trying to reach new goals, add more members, add more value to the members, change people's lives. So yeah, where I see ourselves, our fight team is going to be twice as big in the next coming years. Our location is going to be 3 times the size. Um, um, yeah, and just again, just yeah, asserting ourselves as the premier place to train in the Fox Valley Appleton area.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
especially too if you've been here on a Monday night for kickboxing, we need the space. So
Yeah, yeah, people love the Monday nights, man. And there's like Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. We're like, dude, there's like another 25 people in here. It's like, holy cow. Yeah, so we need it bad. Yeah.
And then so we've kind of touched on like you as a fighter, like where you want to like see yourself coming, like the next few years now also as the gym, but also now hit the aspect of as a coach. I know you said you like want to like double the size of the fight team. Are there any other kind of like goals you see for the fight team in the next few years?
Yeah, a ton. We're a small team, right? Like it's no secret. We're a small fight team. We're a small gym compared to some of these big places. I'd say we probably got about 20 people, I'd say, on the fight team, and that includes, people that haven't fought yet or that may never fight, but they just are good and they are good sparring partners and training partners, which any good team or gym in MMA, they have those guys that are freaking killers that you probably will never hear about because they're not in the spotlight, but they're probably better in the room than some of those dudes that are in the spotlight, which is I think I was always cool. Like always love hearing about those types of people. But yeah, so I foresee doubling or tripling the size of our fight team. That's a hard one too because obviously we look for quality. We don't look for quantity here. I've stopped people from fighting so many times. I push people away from it. Just not everybody's meant to be a fighter, and that's okay. It is not for everybody. Just like I'm not meant to be a NFL player, right? Just not meant for it. I can't do it, right? I just can't, So yeah, I see the fight team, having staples in LFA, Bellator, UFC. We've got some huge things waiting to announce just, already that is going to align us closer to some of those things I just mentioned in the next week or so. So, yeah, that's kind of essentially where I see us, is just having more of a household name. I feel it's pretty safe to say we've already created one of the more household names in Wisconsin. Like, to me, Roufusport is obviously the top gym in Wisconsin, the top in the Midwest, and it is one of the top in the world. But because they're on that world status, I don't even, obviously they're our team, right? Like, that's just we're an off branch of them. So, I think we've already asserted ourselves as one of the top teams in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Because again, like I said, Roufusport's on that world level, so you've essentially you've ascended the state level. Of course they're number one, but my humble opinion. So yeah, I just see us asserting ourselves nationwide, like on a national level, the state level, local level. I feel local level for sure. We're already as a fight team in the sport MMA. It's not a knock on anybody, but we're obviously the premier. And then statewide, we're already asserting ourselves as one of the top teams, and then the next step would be like nationally, and then from there globally, internationally, whatever. So yeah.
So now being a fighter and a coach, and also having like another like full-time job outside of the gym, like I feel like you're kind of spread out. Are there like any challenges that you face, like being like a fighter and a coach, like simultaneously?
Yeah, tons, man. It's this constant juggling act of trying to juggle priorities and move one priority here when is the right time. I'd say that's the toughest thing. I don't know of a ton of, and maybe I'm just misinformed and just don't, which is absolutely the case on most things. There's tons of knowledge I don't know. I can't think of a ton of people even in the state of Wisconsin, and I can only think of a few UFC fighters that I know of that are like full-time coaches, full-time business owners, and are full-time fighters. Joe Lozon sticks out to me. I know he's a full-time coach and fighter, and love that dude. That guy's great. But yeah, most of the coaches you see in MMA are full-time coaches. Of course, there's ones that do it and they do it awesomely, and I'm still trying to find that balancing act. I think I do okay. But yeah, it's definitely got its struggles for sure. It's extremely difficult. If I was able to just focus on one at a time, or just be a coach or just be a fighter, of course, I think I would excel even further in each of those respective things. But
Mm-hmm.
that's not the life I live in, and this is the life I chose. So I just do the best that I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like how you kind of bring up Joe Lozon as like a coach and a fighter, full time for both. Are there like, is there like any big influences on you, like personally, like as like a coach, like people that like influence you, like Joe Lozon being like kind of like the same roles like you are?
Yeah. I'd say, probably like the two biggest influences as a coach would hands down have to be Duke, Rufus, and my professor, Daniel Vonderlei. I can't even put into words, and if I just had to name two, those would be the two. Scott Cushman, Joe Nichols,
Yeah.
and then other people that I follow online, Chuck, Coach Chuck here. David, all those people have made it a big impact on my coaching. But yeah, like Duke, just being, he's just done it all, man. He's seen it all. He has so much life experience. Every time I go down to HQ, we end up talking for hours. And I love it because I'm just like such a nerd about it all. I'm such a nerd about I'm such a huge fan of Duke as a fighter. And then a huge fan as a coach, being a coach. And then the fact that he is actually one of my mentors, business and personally, and as a coach and a fighter, is so cool. And then same with Daniel. Daniel is, forever going to be one of my lifelong friends, and I feel like a part of his family because of the way that he makes me a part of that. Same with me and David and Chuck and, all the members here. But, I'd say like Daniel has definitely taught me when it comes to jiu-jitsu, just like the simplicity in how he teaches is so incredible. He's hands down one of the best people I've ever seen as a jiu-jitsu instructor. He is a savant on the ground. His son is amazing. Gabriel is just such a freaking animal.
Yeah.
But Professor, man, it's incredible to watch him train. And I mean, man, there's stories I could tell you about the kind of guys he's submitted in training and stuff. Meaning just like it's just putting him on this caliber of like, wow, he's world class. You would blow your mind. And he's so humble that he talks about like, Andre Galval or Damian Maia. He's like, those guys would make me look silly. Like those guys are on another level. And
Yeah.
And that's why I love him so much, because he has that humility. And same with Duke. Duke is always trying to learn and improve. And those are probably my two biggest influences as a coach, I think. Yeah.
Now, kind of on the fighter aspect, who are like some of your biggest influences as fighters, even if like you've met them or not?
That's a good question. I would say, God, that's a tough one, and I'm not gonna try to sit here and think, because I don't want to make this interview longer than it probably is. People are probably sick of me talking by now, but I would say probably. I'm sorry. Can you ask the question again? Like, who are my
two biggest like influences, like fighters?
Okay,
whether you know
yeah.
them or not personally.
Probably Duke as a fighter. Probably the same people, because Professor is also a fighter. Their mentalities that they've shared with me about fighting. Coach Chuck as a fighter, his mentality and stance and things on fighting. And then everybody, honestly, at Roufusport. Of course, like it would take me a while to think about people that I've not met, because I'm a fan of so many people.
Yeah.
And I mean, every day I'm listening to interviews and watching breakdowns and watching fights where I'm like, wow, I'm learning a lot. I learn something every time I watch a UFC card, a Bellator card, LFA card. I'm like, wow, look at the trend in MMA. Like, I see this a lot in cards, or on certain cards that I'm watching. Like, guys are starting to do this more. Yeah, just anybody at Roufusport, all the fighters there, man. I learned so much from them, and those are probably my biggest influences for sure, I'd say.
And now I know this was another submitted question from some of the members, but who are your favorite UFC fighters, either like currently on the roster or like maybe even former?
Sure. Hands down, my favorite fighter, and people won't believe this, but this is way before I even joined Team Roufusport, is Anthony Pettis. Anthony Pettis is got to be my favorite fighter. And it's cool to see him still competing at the highest levels to this day. Sergio, I mean, honestly, probably my favorite, again, it's like cliche to say, right? But it's like all the dudes at Roufusport, all the UFC guys, and the guys outside of the UFC. But what was it? My favorite UFC fighters?
Yep.
I was gonna say, because Emmanuel Sanchez has got to be one of my favorites, but he's in Bellator. God, man, that's a tough one. Some of the people that I really enjoy watching, I'd say more modern, would be like obviously Anthony Pettis, hands down, is my favorite. I just love his fighting style. Being able to have said I've trained with him many times is super cool. So it's like I've hands down felt the world class skill from him. I love Cowboy Cerrone, and it sucks him and Pettis having to fight again. Of course, I got my boy Pettis.
Of course.
But Cowboy is another fan favorite. Who doesn't love Cowboy? DC, John Jones. I won't go into all of the personal stuff, but man, John Jones is incredible. Conor McGregor, I love Conor McGregor. Just the self-belief, his skill. People doubt the skill. It's like, bro, you can't.
That law of attraction he has.
Yeah, just that is incredible. Israel Adesanya, Izzy. Adesanya. He's probably one of my favorites right now because I watched him coming up from Glory into getting into MMA. So I was on the bandwagon way before a lot of people. Those are just some of the ones that come to mind right away.
And I can vouch for Andrew. He's not just being a fanboy just because we're part of Roufusport. Like I've heard him talk. Like Anthony Pettis, the Pettis brothers, a lot of people from Roufusport are his favorite fighters.
Yeah.
No matter what organization. And then kind of like sticking on like the path of fighters, like what do you think are like the attributes that make a fighter successful?
That's tough. There's a lot of different attributes that make a successful fighter, but I would say off the top of my head would be anybody that can just keep their head down and eyes on the prize, head down, just nose to the grindstone, just working hard, right? Just being a grinder, because this sport is long. So it's like, it depends what your goal is. Is your goal to have one fight, be an amateur champion, be a pro, get in the UFC or get in a Bellator or whatever, be a successful, pro fighter, just, having like a good record, beating good guys. You have to be a grinder. It is the long game for sure. There is no shortcuts in MMA. There is no, easy routes to take. So a grinder. And then really, besides that, would be self-belief. You 100% need that, but it's not just self-belief in yourself, it's self-belief in the team that you have. Sometimes you're gonna start at a gym, they simply just can't get you to the levels that you need in MMA. And that's just the sad truth. But you see it too often where people will leave an awesome gym to go somewhere else to a big super camp. And sometimes it's exactly what they needed, right? So I can't like sit there and bash it, but a good example is like Anthony Pettis, right? Like Duke was already a successful fighter and champion before Anthony getting into the UFC, right? But like he took Anthony from nothing, literally off the street. I mean, he had the Taekwondo background, but he brought him into MMA as an amateur, his first ever fight, all the way to a UFC world title, WEC title. Incredible stuff, right? Like, so, Anthony had to have the self-belief that Duke could get him there, because like before that, Duke had already coached other UFC fighters and MMA guys. But yeah, so just like that self-belief, the hard work, and I'd say the biggest thing amongst those things is the last thing I'll say is that you just gotta put the ego down, man. Man, it's so incredible. As we touched on before, I have an ego. Everybody has an ego. If you say you don't have an ego, you probably have the biggest one out of people that you know. Yeah, you're lying. Just like people that say they're not scared to fight, you're scared to fight. It's just like, how scared are you and how those nerves affect you, But yeah, just not having an ego, like put the ego down and trust your coaches. Stop thinking that you know everything, especially when you're new to the sport. You don't know crap, man. To this day, I still listen to Chuck, to David. And I'll take a lot of advice from all of my students. Like because I'm the head coach of the gym. Technically, the fighters in the fight team are my students. But I still take stuff from them all week, every week. Some of the blue belts in jiu-jitsu class or even white belts will like do something, and I'm like, "What do you do there?" I'm like, "That's pretty cool." Just natural little things they do. I like that. Okay, I'm gonna start adding that, or maybe I'll tweak it a little bit and add this. Like, oh, you're on the right track with this. So just putting the ego down, because everyone thinks they know everything. Just find a good team, a good gym that has knowledgeable coaches who have experience either in MMA or coaching fighters in MMA. You don't need to be a great, like most of the coaches in the sport, like just because you were a great fighter doesn't make you a great coach. Of course that experience is invaluable, but you also don't ever have need to have fought to be a good coach. Some of the best coaches I've ever seen don't have that experience, but some guys seek those people out that have fight experience. You know, Duke is a good example of an amazing coach, but is also an amazing fighter. That's just rare, you know. So yeah, I would say that hard work, be a grinder, self-belief in you and your team, and then just check the ego, man, because you don't know everything.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why you're a fighter, and then coaches are coaches.
Exactly.
That's the biggest thing I see in our gym as well. Any gym you go to, people think they know better. Listen, you don't, okay? And if you do, there's somebody that knows better. You know what I'm saying? It's just this constant thing where you just like people, just need to check the ego. Yeah.
And that's why you see it too, like a lot of fighters, like either the growth kind of starts to either like dwindle or maybe even just like halt, rather than some fighters like kind of taking that advice and keep growing like exponentially.
Yes, exactly, 100%.
Moving on, ultimately, what is your main dream as like a martial artist or like a mixed martial artist?
That's an interesting one. I wonder who asked that one. I know, because I know I saw some of the people that asked. That's a tough one too, right? A lot of these I didn't even think about. I would say if I have to answer it right as just a pure practitioner, would just be to be able to train all day long. I mean, it would really be the dream, right? So like, if I combine that, you know, would one day, you know, we'll get there very, very soon. I mean, I could do it now, but I just choose not to. Would be to just like train all day long and coach all day long and teach all day long and just share martial arts, you know. Essentially that's about it. So it's an easy one.
That's cool. Now we got some questions kind of asking about like your training regimen. So first one we got is like how many hours a week do you actually put in with like weightlifting?
Okay.
You got that one?
Okay.
And also kind of the other side is how many hours of cardio do you do in a week?
A lot. The weight training, that's fluctuated over the years. I'd say, well, obviously right now I do a lot of body weight stuff, just everybody's quarantined, so I've been doing a lot of body weight workouts for our members. I mean, really right now I do zero weightlifting, just body weight workouts. So it's fluctuated in the past. You know, maybe I used to do like a couple hours a week, maybe. It just depends on where my body's at. You know, I've had my body break down from too much weightlifting. I felt really good from weightlifting at certain points. So I mean, right now it's zero, but I'd say normally a couple hours, I guess. You know, inside of a fight camp, a little bit less. Outside of a fight camp, a lot more, like a couple hours. Yeah.
Okay. And the cardio?
Oh God.
You had to like, put a number to it.
Yeah, I mean, a number, it's hard to say, but I mean, we're rolling every day, sparring, you know, wrestling, kickboxing, hitting pads. So I mean, a week, I mean, goodness, probably, I mean, easily to say, probably an hour or so a day.
Yeah.
You know, because then even when I'm not training in here, you know, I'm sometimes going for a run outside, a couple miles, you know. So I mean, say 7 to 10 hours a week, maybe.
Jeez.
Yeah, I don't
know. It's like weird to think it's probably even longer than that.
It could be, and it's hard to say because like when I say an hour, I'm thinking of like an hour class.
Yeah.
But it's like if you're hitting pads, you're only doing that for 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes more. If you're rolling, it's about 30 minutes. But yeah, I'd say like 7 hours a week. I don't know. Just throw that number out there, yeah.
And then still kind of sticking with training, do you prefer kind of like the short bursts like HIIT training or rather do longer workouts?
That also really depends. I'd say, that just really depends. I would say I probably do like a long endurance workout once or twice a week, more like maybe once a week. And then everything is in a little bit more shorter bursts. But yeah, it just depends. I like to vary it up. So I like to do smaller burst training, 10 to 15 minute range. And then we start going into 20 to 30 minutes, you know, is longer. And then if you go even longer than that, I mean, you're in the long endurance. So, I use both. I don't really have a preference. I use both, yeah.
And then also, like, while you're preparing for a fight, do you follow any kind of specific, like meal plans or, like, nutrition plans?
When I'm getting ready for a fight?
Yep.
When I'm getting ready for a fight, I have a pretty specific program. My last camp, that I didn't actually get to fight, but I made the weight and everything, I actually hired a specialist, Ben Locken, so shout out to Ben Locken, my man. Awesome dude. Got through him because he's done weight cuts for like guys like Craig Eckelberg, JP St. Louis, Paul Felder, and there's probably a bunch of other guys. Those are just the Roufusport teammates I can think of. He's out of Minnesota, but he's a weight cut specialist underneath the Lockhart and Leith system. So those who don't know, Lockhart and Leith is like one of the largest, weight cut specialist providers for like UFC fighters that I know of. So he had it wasn't the whole camp that we worked with. We mostly worked with each other on the weight cut at the end, fight week, and then rehydration and all that stuff. But yeah, I have a pretty specific thing. I mean, really my lifestyle, man, right now quarantine, I'm eating bad, more so than normal, but I'm still trying to eat healthy and work out a bunch to negate all that. But outside of a camp, I mean, man, I can go crazy sometimes, and I'm doing a much better job of not going as crazy, but pretty much like a paleo lifestyle. If you guys don't know what the paleo diet is, PALEO diet. Type that into Google, you'll figure it out. It's just a really healthy way of living that I've done since I was a young kid. I lost like 70 pounds on my own when I was about 14. I was really overweight growing up, and that helped me tremendously to lose that weight and get onto a healthier lifestyle that I now live every day. But I can go crazy on the food. I can eat. Can't eat as much as I used to, which is a good thing. So I just like a paleo diet pretty much. When it gets closer to the fight, way less carbs, more protein and fat. Just lean meats, chicken, rice, beef, grass-fed, all grass-fed beef. I cook everything in grass-fed butter. Kerrygold, give me a sponsorship, please. Vegetables, fruits, nuts and seeds. That's essentially like a paleo diet. Yeah, little grains. Yeah.
And then now, kind of following up around like the last few questions here, and they're kind of like to get to know you a little bit more personally.
Okay.
But what is one thing outside the gym that's like not MMA related that you enjoy doing?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I don't have a lot of time to do a lot of these things I'm about to talk about. Right now I have more time. I grew up playing video games. I think most fighters that I know of play video games. Good thing to do in the downtime, but I've hardly had time to play them in the last 10 years. Just my lifestyle has just become so much busier, working, the gym, fighting, all that stuff. But I love playing some Call of Duty. Warzone right now is essentially what I'm most obsessed with. Outside of that, I love one of my biggest things that I love doing, and when the movie theaters were open, I'd do this every week, was to go to see a new movie in the theater. There's something I love about going to the theater to watch a new movie. I can't depict what it is exactly. I think it's kind of similar to like why I like training. It takes my mind off of everything. The comfy seats, obviously. Shout out to the Marcus Theater on what's that? I mean, it's like right
Van Roy.
Yeah, Van Roy Road. Shout out to you guys, Real Sizzle. I love that place.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. So yeah, going to see movies, playing video games here and there. Get outside, go hiking, play something like some kind of sport outside, exercise outside, go for a run. I love staying fit and working out. Playing pool, billiards, so just so you don't get that confused. Used to play quite a bit when I was younger. I have, pool cues, and I want to get a table eventually when I get a house. Used to play in tournaments a lot, try to play competitively. I mean, I sucked, but I like to play a lot, so that's something I love to do too. It's probably what sticks out the most. Yeah.
And now these next few questions, they're for you, Melissa. So first one, what's your favorite color?
Black or blue? Probably blue, I guess, but people argue, right, and say black's not a color.
Yeah,
it's a
I don't
shade,
listen to them.
right? So, I don't know. Black or blue? Yeah.
Okay. Next one, if you could choose to be any animal, what would it be?
That's a funny one. If I could choose to be any animal, what would it be? God. I'm gonna go with like just animals I'm obsessed with, like lions and tigers, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
Another one she got is, what superhero do you think you are most like?
I love Marvel and superheroes, DC. I love all that stuff. I'm a nerd with that stuff. I grew up playing the games, playing the action figures, comics. But which one do I think I'm most like?
Yeah.
And why? Oh God, why couldn't you just ask me which one I'd want to be?
You can just go with that one too.
I think I'd want to be Superman.
Oh, yeah,
Fly. Bullets can't kill you. You can, the laser beams. I think you can like X-ray vision, right?
Yep. He's just
Plus I look like Henry Cavill, the guy that actually played I'd like to be Henry Cavill as Superman. Stud. So yeah, I don't know what superhero. Almost like I'm not a superhero, so I can't say.
Then her last one probably goes back to the nutrition. Is how many times a week do you buy and eat gluten-free baked goods and tell yourself it's okay because it's gluten-free?
That's a good one. Weekly. I'll just say that.
And then just wrapping up here, just kind of go full circle and recap. What advice would you give to like aspiring fighters?
Oh, that's a good one. I would. This is going to be probably interesting, and like meaning it's probably not similar to what everyone else says, but I would probably say. Oh, maybe not. I would say the big thing, if you're wanting to get into the sport of MMA and become a fighter, you have to determine and really quantify why you want to do that. Often, I've done it with Spencer. Before he wanted to fight, I literally tried to like almost talk him out of it because I want to see how much you want to fight. Like, is it something you truly desire to do? A lot of people will come into oh my goodness, if you own an MMA gym, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Or if you're a coach of a gym, you don't even have to own it, right? You're just a coach. You know how many people come in and say, I want to be a fighter, man. I'm going to be a fighter. And, man, do we not like those people, right? And I'm sorry for those that do that. But the reason is because the fact that like people have that audacity to think that it's so easy to just get into it and do it. It's like, man, you have no idea. But most of them do it for the vain aspect of just being called a fighter, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just want to be an MMA fighter. I do MMA. It's like UFC. That's what I do. I cannot stand people like that. And I just don't care if you're like that. I'm sorry. Doesn't mean I hate you, but I can't stand it. So yeah, figure out and quantify, why do you want to fight? Because I'm going to tell you right now, it is extremely difficult. It is extremely hard on your body, your soul, your emotional well-being, like mental, physical, emotional, spiritually. It is so hard, man. And I think most fighters would agree with me that it is the hardest sport on earth. I think that. So yeah, just quantify, why you want to do it, and seek out a knowledgeable team and a gym that is a good atmosphere, a good group of people, and really try to vet those people though. And I'm not trying to like throw shade at anybody specifically, but just like, man, you see it all the time. Like you go, I know firsthand, like I've gone to gyms and trained with different people. And I'm like, after a while, you put so much time into that team and that gym and those people, and then you figure out later on that they just don't really care about you, Mm-hmm. So try to find a place with really caring people. But of course, too, you need to find somewhere that has results as well. So yeah, try to seek out knowledgeable, good people that are in your area. Figure out why you want to do it, and then goes back to like the attributes of being a successful fighter. Just work hard, no ego, and believe in yourself and your team.
Kind of like what Coach Chuck was saying, his kind of like spotlight. You gotta make sure you're in it for the right reasons.
Yes, 100%, because most are not. So I wouldn't even bother trying to do one fight. I'll just be honest. And it like, people would be like, well, why would you say that? Your goal is to create, a fight team and have people fight. And my goal is not like, when opening the gym was to not like create the best fight team in the state. That's just kind of become, have one of the better, best gyms in the state. That's just kind of become a byproduct of what we've done. The main goal is to serve the everyday person and try to help change their life with martial arts, which is what we do here, on a weekly basis. So fighters are not my like target audience of mm-hmm. customers, and as a business owner, I'm saying that. Do I love the sport? It's all I think about. It's all I do. It's my life, engulfs it. But yeah.
Okay. And our last question is, if you had only like one thing to say to all your members, what would it be?
That's a good one. I wonder who asked that. That's a good one. I would say, just with everything going on right now, and I've been shouting it from the rooftops, I think as much as I can, is just thank you guys for your continued support over the years. Us just having our 4-year anniversary is just another reminder of how far we've come. And then during this pandemic, man, this is a crazy time for business owners worldwide, individuals worldwide. So the fact that people are, the majority of all of our students are still keeping their memberships active to help keep us afloat during this time is, again, I cannot thank you guys enough for that. It truly, like, if I really sat down, in which I have, if I really just sit here and just sit in that gratitude that I feel, I mean, it'll make me extremely emotional. And like I said, I'm an emotional guy. I'm not gonna get all emotional on you guys, but yeah, if I could just say one thing, would be thank you for everything that you guys have done to help us and support us, and help me live out my dream of being a coach, a teacher. Help me live or fulfill my what I feel is my passion in my life. So just thank you for you guys also being amazing people too. We have, I think, of course I'm biased, right? But I think, and I know you would agree, and everyone else, is that I feel we have like the most amazing group of members, coaches, fighters, teammates at our gym. Just truly amazing people, that I consider truly like family.
Oh yeah, hands down. Oh yeah, well, that was our last question. That kind of wraps everything up. Thank you guys for sending in your questions to get to learn Coach Andrew a little bit better. Make sure to check out our other spotlights that we got going with Coach Chuck, and also way back with Coach Alex. And also, we're going to keep pumping out videos of our techniques for jiu-jitsu and kickboxing. Make sure to check those out.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.